to hear from Larry about his trip. So Larry, go ahead, and I will let you introduce yourself because I don't know that much about you, and you will do a way better job. So first of all, thank you for being here, and take it away.
Thanks for having me. My name's Larry, Michigan native, born and raised, and I've explored all over Michigan. I've camped all the major spots most of you have already seen or heard of or been to: Pictured Rocks, Isle Royal, Manistee River, and all the countless campgrounds and lakes that we have. So that's just a little bit about me, where I come from. So I say we just get into doing the Pacific Crest Trail stuff. Let me see. Am I sharing the screen right now? I think so.
Yes, I see it.
But it's a little, we can't read the stuff on the right-hand side.
All right.
Well, it's still the presentation. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, there we go.
So Pacific Crest Trail 2020. And if you guys have any questions about anything that you see on the slide or anything that I mentioned, just feel free to ask. Some of this stuff will just be very brief because you can talk for hours about doing a thru hike. What I believe is like the core of what it takes to complete one of these from start to finish. So in the beginning, obviously it's planning, and planning to me, it always starts with a map. Almost every one of the adventures I've gone on, the first thing I buy is a map. And whether it's a physical paper map, which I have, tons of at the house, or if it's an app called Guthook. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's an extremely useful navigation tool on the trail. I always consider it to be it's like Yelp for hiking. You can click on campsites along the trail and it gives you reviews of the site. It tells you information, whether there's water there. So that's kind of Guthook. I'll get more into that in a little bit later. Facebook groups are very useful. There's a lot of really good information and perspectives that you can get from that. And YouTube videos. There's a lot of hiking YouTube vlogs out there about that. But one thing that I don't think a lot of hikers realize is there's this website called Lighter Pack. And this is what really helped me get all of my gear dialed in. So you guys can see this chart here, right? It says 2020 hiking, has a little graph.
Yes.
So yeah, you just put all these pictures in here and you have your weight in the right column, and it's very useful because it really shows you what it is that you're lacking or all the things that you already have. So I used a couple other hikers, lighter pack sites as an example, and just kind of mimicked what they had because it's all pretty basic stuff that you need out there. And it's just a great way to keep track of it and really know what your base weight is. My base weight was 13 pounds approximately, and that fluctuated a little bit. So that's kind of that's just a brief thing about planning. Gear and training. Gear, if you're an avid hiker or outdoors person, gear is one of the main things you're going to be talking about and studying. It's really important if you're doing a thru hike that you practice and train with your gear. Even when I was on the first couple days, it took me a little while to really get a good pitch on my tent. The tent that I used, it's a trekking pole style tent, so it uses my trekking poles as the poles to stay up, but it's a dual wall, and it was a little complicated to set up, and I don't feel like I got a great pitch the first couple of days I was out there, but after a little while I got it, and this was after weeks of setting it up and taking it down in my backyard as well. And then to train for it, all you have to do is put your gear on and go for walks. That's the only way to train. You just go for long walks, get your feet ready to be doing a lot of walking. And that's pretty simple. That's really all there is to it. A thru hike is just a lot of walking as far as training and whatnot. And then one more bit about gear. We call this the Big Four or the Big Three, as some people will refer to it. Sometimes they leave out the sleeping bag or the sleeping pad. But the Big Four for me was my pack, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, and my tent. And that just refers to the heaviest and most expensive items that you're going to be bringing with you. You can see what my weight was for all that. So that's it about gear. There's a little bit more about gear actually, because we're kind of gearheads in the outdoor community. This was the clothing that I brought with me. I didn't have to replace any of this except for the shorts and the shirt, but that's because of how much wear and tear both of those got. The shirt was worn every day while hiking, and the friction from the pack on my back rubbed almost an entire hole in the back of the shirt. And those shoes you see there, those are Ultra Lone Peaks 4.5s. I went through about 5 or 6 pairs of those. Incredible shoe, very comfortable. I didn't really have any blisters throughout the entire hike. And everything else held up quite well. The hat that I have there is now a gray color because it was sun bleached. And then here's just a few odds and ends that you kind of need to have on a through hike. I would say the most important things here are your cook pot, your GPS, and your water filter system. I started with the Sawyer Squeeze. If you're familiar with that, it's a very simple, very lightweight water filter that attaches to this little bladder bag here. And you scoop the water up in the bladder, squeeze it through the Sawyer filter, and you've got clean water. And then, that's, you got your stove, your spork, charger, and a pillow. So now we're at the point, I've got all my gear and I'm ready to go. One of the biggest questions that a lot of the thru hikers will have is, how do you get to the southern terminus from the airport? And for me, even during COVID, it wasn't even that bad. My flight wasn't canceled. There were no changes to my flight plan or anything really. I stuffed all of my gear into an IKEA blue plastic bag that my sister had actually recommended. And I got it through the baggage check, no problem. When I landed in San Diego, I stopped at a grocery store, picked up a few fresh things like tortillas and fuel. And then I got an Uber, and the Uber took me to the Campo Green store. And the Campo Green store is a few miles away from the actual southern terminus of the PCT, which is pictured here. I woke up the next morning after, my travel day and just walked to the southern terminus and took a few pictures there. So that's it. Now I'm on trail actually. And a few other things about being on trail.
Larry?
Yeah.
If I may, we have someone asking a question, why you chose a filter instead of iodine crystals.
So the iodine crystals, my understanding was that there was a possibility of there being a shortage this year because of people kind of hoarding certain types of supplies. I've used them in the past, but when it comes to through hiking, if you have something that can gallons, like a Sawyer filter, for me, I think it's just a little bit safer to go with one of those than the iodine crystals. For the 2020 year specifically, because if there was a consumable like the crystals, that's possible that if that was my only decision for water filter, I could get to a town where they don't have those. And plus the Sawyer filters, those squeeze filters, those are really they're a very trusted piece of gear for thru hikers. So there are people that use the iodine crystals, but as far as trusted gear, a lot of the thru hikers know that the squeeze filters are very reliable. And so that was why I went with the squeeze filter. I'm used to it. I trust it. And I wouldn't have to worry about a consumable not being available in town.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So let's see, trail logistics and trail life. There's trail logistics for me. I tried to plan out all of my resupplies before I left home. And I had a map in my room that had almost a quarter of the way up the trail planned towns to go and resupply. And I just stopped. I said, this isn't going to work for me. I can't do it this way. So I decided I would just do a hybrid of resupplying from towns that had shops to resupply from. And I would also have my family back home send me packages to local post offices along the trail. And I think that was the best option because there were some towns that were just a little expensive, and going into a gear shop and paying $15 for dinner, a dehydrated meal, just didn't make sense. So there were a lot of towns, not a lot, but some towns that had a post office that just was cheaper and smarter to have the packages sent there. And if you see, there's this girl holding the umbrella. And being on a hike like this, you meet a lot of interesting people. But that girl's name, I met her. Her name is Mama Cass. That's her trail name. I met her on day 2, and she had already hiked the Appalachian Trail. So when I saw her, we talked a little bit, and she had mentioned that she'd done a through hike once before. And I asked if she wouldn't mind if we hiked together for a little while. And she ended up being my best friend on trail. We hiked the whole thing. We were at the end of the hike together, and she was one of the biggest helps on trail for me. She just knew how to plan a day. She knew how to plan the miles, how to get in and out of town. But I met her on day 2, so she was there almost the entire way for me. And just a couple things here. The campsites along the trail, we always tried to plan them near water. You're hiking like 20 some miles a day in the desert, especially, and you want to try to get as close to water as possible. Yeah, it's pretty simple logic there. Trail angels are a really big factor for getting in and out of trails. The first place that I took a full day off from the trail, I believe it was 2 weeks. I was hiking 2 weeks straight. And I got to a town where they had a restaurant. And at the restaurant, they had a book that was full of people's phone numbers who would give you a ride into the bigger town. And you could, you can give them like a tip or whatever. But most of them, they don't even care if you give them money. They want to hear your story and talk to you. But that was kind of the vibe for all the trail angels. They were super interested in what we were doing, and they've seen hundreds and thousands of us before. And they would just open their homes to us and just, hey, you guys look like thru hikers. You need a ride somewhere. There was even a guy at a supermarket. He looked at me and he's like, "You look like a thru hiker. Is your name Bird?" And that was my trail name. My trail name was Bird. And he recognized my name from a trail register that was on trail. He actually he provided water at a water cache, but he came up to me and he's like, "Your name's Bird, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And he's like, "Cool. I met some of your friends in town. They told me you'd be here." So he ended up giving me a ride to the post office, ride back to my hotel. And that kind of just that generosity, I had never experienced it before. And it was so great, especially in such a weird time that we were going through, to see that was still something that people were willing to do was just incredible. Let's see what else we got here. All right. A little bit more about navigation. So this is what the Gut Hook app looks like. In the middle, this is the trail, and you can use this without cell service. It functions off of GPS, and you can walk on the red line there, and there's an icon that'll follow with you, and you can click on each of these little icons, and there's public comments that everybody can leave. It's very simple, but if you're looking for a water source, you click on the water source, and it'll tell you whether there's water there or not. The comments get updated every time you do get service, and you make a lot of your decisions based on what you read from Gut Hook. It also has an elevation map, which is very useful, letting you know if you have a big climb ahead of you. It does take a little bit of the mystery and wonder out of doing a trail like this, but if you just use it for the information, like water sources and whatnot, and kind of ignore where the trail goes, northwest, south, whatever. It's takes some of the fun out of the mystery of the trail, I suppose. Hitchhiking, that's a big part of getting in and out of town, and road walks if you have to. Didn't have to do a whole lot of road walks on the PCT. So now we're in the desert. And the desert section, I really enjoyed. I did really well in the desert section. Aside from the long water carries and the lack of shade, I really felt that the desert was one of the most beautiful things I had gotten to experience. And actually, this picture in the upper left, that was like the first time I felt just how open and vast this landscape was. I remember pausing there and just thinking to myself, my eyes can't really fathom what it is that I'm seeing right now. I mean, being from Michigan, we all know the Upper Peninsula has mountains, but this vast miles of land it was unreal. Um, so going into the desert and making some of these climbs, there was this very awe-inspiring landscape, and it was very one more thing about this that I separated from my hiking group, and I had like 40 miles that day. And at sunset, and it looked just unbelievable. I definitely stopped for a moment. I took my pack off and just gazed at it, because that was one of those moments where it just felt like it was mine. There was except for me.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. Let's see. The desert, greener than expected. You can see that there are trees out there that have some green and some life to them. And the way that you survive the desert is you have to get up very early before the sun rises, and you start hiking so that you have the cool temperatures of the morning, leading you into the hottest part of the day, which is when it's too hot, you'd get too dehydrated. And then you continue hiking around 4 or 5 in the evening and put as many miles down as you can. And that was pretty much the way that you hike through the desert. Very early mornings and late nights hiking. Now, this particular set of pictures is very interesting to me, because this was where I almost gave up. I had been on trail for almost a week at this point, and there was a very long water carry this day, and I was starting to get it in my head, like, am I cut out to do this? Like, did I make a mistake coming out here? And I mean, I feel terrible. My feet are kind of blistered up at that point, and I wasn't even sure if there was going to be water at the next well, but it's not a natural water source, so you can't rely on them. So I was approaching Mary's place here, and Mary's place is maintained by a woman named Mary. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet her and tell her how much this spot meant to me, but I saw these 3 cardboard cutouts of Whitman, Thoreau, and Muir, who are 3 of my favorite poets. That their poems, they're written like inspiration for why I love the outdoors. And so I approached this spot, and then Mary had put a journal there with a writing prompt, which was, "Why are you doing this?" And then I kind of sat down, and there was water there, so I was hydrating, and I sat down thinking to myself, why am I here? What was my why? Because when you do a thing like this, your why has to be the strongest thing. It has to be stronger than the weather. It has to be stronger than the pain in your feet, the pain in your back. It has to be the strongest thing that you take with you. And my whole why for doing it was I wanted an adventure. I wanted to challenge myself, and I wanted to see if I had the endurance to finish this hike. So I considered the writing of the 3 poets, and I actually had a few passages in my phone that I reread, and I had the motivation to keep going. So this was the spot where if there was no water, I may not have even finished the hike. I probably would have just said, I can't do this, and I'm getting out of there. But this place, I feel like it saved me. It was probably one of the most important places that I was able to visit on the trail, and that was called Mary's Place. So that now, once we move past the desert, we get into the Sierras, and this is like the strength section of the trail. This is where you survive the desert, and now you have to start building up your strength to finish up the rest of the hike, because you still have to get through California, Oregon, Washington. And I would say that this was probably the toughest terrain of the hike. I was front of the pack hiker in the desert, and I did really well in the desert. My body held up great. I got into the Sierras, and I was in the back. My feet, I'm pretty sure I had multiple stress fractures in my feet, but to me that pain was, I can just walk through that and I'll be fine by the end of the day. So I had, my feet felt like they were in vice grips every step that I took on a rock or something. But I just ignored it. I knew that eventually my feet would just heal and I would be fine. But for how painful and difficult the Sierras were, with all the mountain passes you had to climb over, this was one of the most beautiful sections of the entire trail. You can see those pictures. They don't even really do those places justice, because you have to be standing there to be able to see just this vastness and this beauty that is completely encompassing you. And when the transition from the desert to the Sierras was that there was literally water almost everywhere. You never had to worry about it. That was one of the best things about the Sierras. You didn't have to have long water carries anymore. And you also passed the 1,000-mile mark in the Sierras, which is here. And that's the tribe that I was hiking with. From left to right in that picture, that's Bam, Dirty Dan, Bear Hug, Root, myself, Mama Cass, and Buttercup. That was like my main group. We all hiked together and worked through the Sierras together. Let's see. Yeah, my feet really hurt at this point. Yep. Oh, and then the horses there, those were just free roaming horses. They were tagged, but we didn't. There must have been a ranch or something somewhere, because we came up on these horses and there was hundreds of them just running around. And then not much to say about this. I just wanted to add a few more pictures of the Sierras. This is what our campsites looked like. This little hut, that's the John Muir Pass. Beautiful spot, very difficult pass to get up and over. But yeah, so that's some of the scenery up there.
Those horses were at the Muir Ranch, and they have them there when we did the John Muir Trail. And they had let them out by accident. Somebody left the gate open when you're walking through.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, we had no idea, but that makes sense. I'm pretty sure that's where we were, near the Muir Trail Ranch too. So now we're into Oregon, and Oregon and Washington, both of those states to me were the speed and endurance portion of the hike. Oregon, when you get into Oregon, the very first half of it is very flat, and you can put down 30 miles in a day, no problem. Unfortunately, the part of Oregon that's the flattest is also the driest part. It was like a desert forest. We had very minimal water for those long miles that we were putting in. And there were water caches. We didn't expect, for how lush and green Oregon was, we didn't expect to have to rely on water caches while we were out there. And then this was the picture you guys saw. This was at Crater Lake. This is actually an alternate of the PCT. So this wasn't on the actual the red portion of the PCT on Gut Hook. This was just a side trail. And this is a very interesting lake. There's no other water sources that feed this. It doesn't exit anywhere, and there's no water that goes into it from a waterfall or anything. It's just snow and water. What happened is that when this volcano erupted, it collapsed in on itself, and the layer of the lake, like the lake floor, is sealed, because when the water and the hot temperatures connected, it just made a solid seal. So all the water you see here is from rain and snow melt. What else? Yeah, and this whole trail, you see the mountains over there on the left. That the trail wanders up into those mountains too. And this was, that the way that the blue of it, it rivals Lake Superior. And then another interesting part of the Oregon landscape was the lava rock fields. This was only a small part of the trail, but it was still very strange to walk through. You come out of the mountains where it's very green and there's water everywhere, and then there's just piles and piles of lava rocks. We saw a lot of equestrian travelers as well. Most of them were heading southbound. And then you can see that picture there in the lower right, those are burned out trees from forest fires. And those areas can actually be kind of dangerous for hikers to camp at, because if there's winds, there could be a tree that falls, which actually did happen I believe it was last year or the year before, a hiker was crushed by a tree on the PCT. So that was something that was an odd thing to have to watch out for. And now we're into Washington. Again, more speed and endurance. Water was everywhere at this point. We never had to worry about water carries. And then we have the Bridge of the Gods. That's the border from Oregon into Washington. And for me, I knew if I could get to the Bridge of the Gods, that I could finish this hike. And it was like, if you made it here, the Bridge of the Gods to me was like a symbol that you and all the other hikers that made it there, you are almost gods of the trail at that point. You've suffered through some of the worst that the trail had to throw at you, and you made it here to this spot. And this Bridge of the Gods, you walk over this river, and you're like hiking gods at this point. And you sort of have this confidence too about you. And then, there are incredible views everywhere. Anytime you had to climb up into the mountains, you had a mountain range almost everywhere in sight. And there was always a flowing river. But it was at this point on the trail where some of my hiking friends had to bail off. I had gotten separated from half of the group, and it was just me and Mama Cass and Bear Hug, but they had some health issues that they had to deal with off trail. So I decided I would just keep going. So this was kind of the area where I was by myself. And one morning I woke up and I saw these two guys. The guy with the red pack is Kitchen Sink. And then the gentleman down there with the mist and the snow, that's Rev. Two completely different guys. We got a younger hiker and a retired older gentleman. And we ended up having to hike for about 4 days with just constant rain. And this was in the Northern Cascades of Washington. And Kitchen Sink, he was coming through with this schedule of waking up at 3:30 in the morning every day. And that's what he had been doing the whole time he was on the PCT. And he got us up at 3:30 every morning to put on our wet clothes, take down our wet tents, and hike on the wet trail through rain in the dark with our headlamps on, up the mountains, all this bushwhacking we had to do. But I remember trying to convince him to just, no, man, we should wait because the temperature is going to still drop. And he's like, well, have fun. I'm getting up. And it was like that kind of attitude that just sort of challenged me as well. Like, all right, if you're getting up, I'm getting up too, man. And we all kind of watched out for each other. Rev, he had a couple of slips and falls. I almost knocked him off the mountain. My pack got snagged on a tree while we were bushwhacking, and I didn't feel it until the tree started to pull me back. So I took a few steps backward, and one of his legs fell off the side of the trail. And this guy, he's just holding on, and I'm struggling to get this tree free for me to go over there and help him up the trail. And he just pulls himself up like he was Superman or something. And he kind of like checked himself out, and he's like, all right, let's keep going. I'm good. And then eventually we get to this massive gorge of a river with this really big bridge. And then the sun comes out, and we had at least an hour before we needed to get moving. So we spread out all of our gear, all of our clothes, and just waited on that bridge until the sun dried us out. And it was like a massive temperature change. And once the sun was out, it was like hot and everything dried out, and it was amazing. So I was able to hike with these guys for a little while. Kitchen Sink ended up his pace. He just kept going. He got a little bit ahead of us. And then me and Rev, we knew we were sticking together. He was a great conversationalist on trail. And that's one thing that really helps put the miles down, is just being able to talk and kind of ignore the miles that you're doing. So Rev figured, we were going to just stick together for this whole thing. And we stayed together all the way up until the end. You see there's Mama Cass and myself and Bear Hug, and there's Rev up in front. We all ended up meeting back together before the end of the hike, and we knew that we were going to finish together. So, it was interesting because we had to set up our camp 10 miles away from the northern terminus, and celebrate, take our pictures and whatnot. But because COVID had Canada shut off to us, we just had to turn around and walk back up the mountain to where our base camp was. And I mean, that was kind of upsetting because the full PCT experience, part of it is hiking into Canada to Manning Park. But being at the border, to me, my adventure was the southern terminus to the northern terminus. Whether or not I was allowed to walk into Canada from there, it didn't make a difference. Mine was point to point. And I actually, one of the things that kept me going when I was hiking was this picture here where I'm reaching up. I wanted a unique picture. I'd seen people doing high fives or standing next to each other and like, you know, their composition of it. And I thought, well, what would my take on that be? And I had this idea to create this picture. And I think that the picture speaks for itself. You know, the guy that I was is lifted up by the guy that I became at the end of the hike. And that was one of those small things. Like if I ever thought like I got to stop doing this, it was like, yeah, but you got that picture you wanted to make, man. That's got to be worth something to you, right? And so, you know, that was something that kept me going. Let's see, we've got just a few more things on here. So if you had noticed, I had the sections broken down into the most simplified definition of what they were, I suppose. And this was actually something that I had heard from my friend Bear Hug, who he had heard it from this trail angel who had hiked the trail multiple times. And he told him the desert is survival, the Sierras are strength, and Oregon and Washington are both speed and endurance. And I always thought that was a really interesting way to have those sections broken down because it's absolutely true. That is exactly what all of those are. So here's just a few before and after things. This picture here on the left, that's all of my equipment that I brought with me on the first day. And then how my pack looked at the end of it all. First, the day before I left and the day that I got off trail at the very end. Obviously had grown pretty big beard at that point. And I had lost about 35 pounds. So that was a pretty nice side effect of that. And then as for what's next after the PCT, I at first thought I wasn't going to do another thru hike, but then a month after being back in the real world, I started looking at another trail. So I will be doing the Triple Crown. I'm going to do the Continental Divide next year. And then the following year, I'll be doing the Appalachian Trail. And then I'll have the, what the hikers call the Triple Crown. And I believe that's the whole thing. Yeah. So that's my adventure on the Pacific Crest Trail from 2020.
Phenomenal job. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That is cool. I really like your picture at the end too, with the the beginning and the end that you set up. And everybody's got to have a goal, and your goal was I was going to make that picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Good for you.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
No, thanks for giving me the opportunity.
How long
it's one of those strange things.
How long did it take you?
Oh, the whole trip itself, including all the zeros that I took, it took me 135 days, which is exactly the amount of time that I had anticipated for it to take. So, and I have each day documented on my phone as like a photo on my phone from day 1 all the way to day 135.
Wow.
Wow. And how many zeros?
Probably, I want to say 15, maybe. I actually enjoy taking zeros in town. I've never done anything and be completely gay.
Larry, there's a question. What kind of socks did you wear?
The best kind of socks. There's a company called Darn Tough, and yeah, they have the lifetime guarantee. Personally, I didn't feel that I needed to trade in and get a free pair of socks from Darn Tough. Their socks dried out quickly. I never had any blisters, and they held up for hundreds of miles at a time. As far as I was concerned, if I didn't need to send in for a free pair from them. They could take my money, and I was a satisfied customer.
Nice. All right. We also have. Did you have a bear canister for the John Muir Trail
Yes.
section? Any encounters?
I did have a bear canister. You have to have a bear canister pretty much from the start of the Sierras, which is at Kennedy Meadows South, all the way to Kennedy Meadows North, and that takes you well past the Sierras. There was one small bear encounter, but it was at a well-populated campground, and the rangers were already on top of it, and they were shooing it away, and it had a tag in its ear. So that was the only. Well, I did have a mountain lion encounter in the desert, which was scary. This was on that 40-mile day, and the sun had just set. I had my headlamp out. I had Metallica blasting from my phone to just make noise and keep other animals away from me. And there was this boulder, like a 12-foot tall boulder, and I saw two eyes reflect off of my headlamp light, and they disappeared behind the boulder. And then the lights appeared in front of me, and then when my brain realized what was going on, there's a mountain lion staring at me right in front of me on the trail. And wow. I didn't stop. I said, I'm not stopping because it would be too much pain to stop. I'm going to keep moving and just hope this thing gets out of my way. And it did. I just kept walking, stomping my way through, and then it scurried off on the trail. But I kept looking behind me, and I could hear it, and I could see its eyes. It was trailing me for a little ways.
Yeah.
And then it just, I guess I left its territory or whatever. Oh. And yeah, so that was pretty intense.
Also, we have a question. How did you keep your phone charged?
The phone I kept charged with a 26,000 milliamp Anchor battery pack. They are about this big, and 26,000 milliamps would keep my phone charged for about an entire week before I needed a recharge. I could also get my GPS to be fully charged for that whole week too. So I would be charging two devices on 1 week's full charge on my battery pack. And 26,000 milliamps for what I was using it for was probably slightly overkill, but I would rather have something like that has my communication with the outdoor or with the outside world. I'd rather have overkill than not enough.
So you charged those when you went into town, your big battery, your 26,000 is that?
Yeah.
So okay, no solar chargers or anything
solar
like that.
chargers. So for solar chargers, you need big surface area for solar chargers. And the little ones that are about the size of a cell phone, I saw a lot of those things on trail, but none of them except for one that my friend Bear Hug had would actually hold a charge. I mean, there was like 20 or 30 some people that had them. They said this thing just does not work. But Bear Hug, his was working. He could have his phone somewhere around 30% most of the day, and he never had an issue with his. But that being said, I would avoid solar chargers because they're not very reliable.
What was the name of that battery pack?
It's by a company named Anchor. That's Anker, and they have a variety of different sizes. And yeah, they're a great company. I stand by them 100% for sure.
Someone asked what kind of phone you used that you were able to. Yeah.
I used the iPhone 11 Pro Max that has, I think it's 250 gigs of storage. And I also have a full terabyte of iCloud storage. And the really nice thing about this phone is it has a wide angle fisheye on it. And that is great for getting, huge landscapes and really interesting pictures of trees and different types of rocks and getting the lakes to be in there in the whole frame. So yeah, the iPhone Pro 11.
All right. We have some comments from Facebook. One of them is from Jesse. It says, "Awesome job, Larry. Dad and I are so proud of you."
So that's my mom and dad, obviously.
Cool.
My mom was actually, this is such a weird thing that happened. So I would post my pictures when I would get to town, and a few of my friends would like on it and comment on it or whatever. My mom would take those pictures and post them. She'd get hundreds of likes, hundreds of comments, all kinds of people talking about it. And she ended up getting like almost a fan base just from the pictures that she was sharing of mine. Which was great because I loved going on there and seeing all these people that my mom knows that are cheering me on and all that. And then another thing about my mom, my family back home, I have a great family. My mom was actually really excited to be doing the resupplies. So I would give her a small list of things, and then I would get this big box of stuff that was like more than I asked for. They always gave me gummy bears. I'd always get big bags of gummy bears, which was like my favorite trail snack. But yeah, my mom and my sister especially, they were the two that really helped put the packages together back home and send them out to me. So that was a huge help from them.
How to have those gummy bears.
Oh man, I'm surprised that wasn't my trail name. There was a night where I just passed out. I woke up and I had gummy bears just all over me because I fell asleep eating them.
I think the bear didn't come and visit.
Let's see. It says, It says, did you ever think of using an umbrella in the desert section like Mama Cass?
The funny thing is Mama Cass was using my umbrella. She had long shorts on, and she looked like she was getting toasted a little bit more than I was. And in the desert, I was actually hiking from the beginning of the hike in long sleeves and pants, and I had a pair of sun gloves on as well. The umbrella was for taking breaks mostly for me. But when her and I were hiking together, I offered her my umbrella just because I was more covered than she was. So yeah, I had the umbrella and she was using mine.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, did you say how many miles you did in a day? Typically, was it like 20 miles a day?
Yeah, my average was about 20. A lot of through hikers will start the desert section doing somewhere between 10 and 15. And I have some previous experience with distance running. Like I ran cross country in high school, and I've maintained a relatively normal schedule for running pretty much my whole life. So when I got to the desert, I felt that I was strong enough to at least push it close to 20 miles. And the first few days I was out, I was doing 18, 19, 20 miles, and I felt great. So I maintained that as much as I could.
Now, how much training are you doing now for next year?
I'm actually running a marathon this coming Sunday. So I've just been running and keeping my legs and my feet strong. But as far as the training for next year, it'll be the same. I'll put my pack on and I'll walk some trails and just make sure that my body's still strong and that I can keep going.
Okay.
Right. And
what do you think you'll take differently?
So because of how successful I felt the gear that I brought with me on the PCT was, I don't know if I'll change much out. I ended up buying almost the exact same tent. The tent that I have, that I had for the PCT, it was everything I was looking for in a tent. The dual wall system really helps prevent condensation, whereas a lot of the other tents, like the Z-Pax Duplex, which is a really popular tent for thru hikers, that's a single wall, and if there's any condensation, it's going to get into the tent. Whereas with mine, that dual wall, it separates the condensation, and I never had an issue with it. So I felt that because of how well that tent held up, even though it wasn't 100% at the end, there were a few things that had broken, but because those things broke and the tent still functioned at 100%, I felt that was a very good product to buy again for the CDT. So the only thing that might be different is, I believe halfway through the CDT next year, I will have to replace my pack because I'm going to be using the same pack from the PCT. It's still in excellent condition. It's still waterproof. There's no holes in it. All the stitching has held up. So I'll just use that one until it falls apart and probably buy the same one again, because my opinion with that type of gear is if it's not broke, I'm not going to fix it. It worked extremely well, and I'll continue to use it until I find an issue that makes me want to use something different.
Wow.
I'm a little surprised you decided on a 2-layer tent when we did some long distance hiking and we used a tarp a single layer tarp with a bug net only. And so we just had our Tyvek on the ground and then just the tarp. And that worked well for us, although the night that it went down to 17 degrees, it was darn cold. But we were able to economize on a lot of weight that way. You know, our whole tent, which normally could sleep up to 4 people, was the whole thing, stakes, guy lines, everything, because it was a pole tent, same trek poles, was only 2.5 pounds, I think.
Okay.
For everything.
Now, the interesting thing about your comment is my tent is it's a tarp tent with a mesh built into it. So there's a picture somewhere in here where my tent is set up there. So right here, you can see that's the net tent.
Yes.
And it attaches to the tarp. So I have versatility. I can have just the tarp set up, or I can have just the mesh, or if I have both, I have a dual wall tent. So
your dual wall is the mesh.
Yep.
What we used was something similar to that, but we just went away for got a bug net and put it on, and we were holding it down. We found out don't use nuts because the little critters will come and eat them.
Yeah.
You have to use little tiny rocks and then make it into like a ball so you can pull it out and keep it taut and then, stake it out with that. So really it was like a tarp with a mesh.
Yeah.
But it came that way. You didn't have to make it work.
Yeah. This tent, it's by a company named Six Moon Designs. They have a little sticker from them, but, that tent, I think it's incredible. It was actually sold out for most of this year, and part of last year, which I think is a good sign. And they did do some, they did some moving around of some things, and they replaced a few things that didn't make sense. But that tent, I think it's exactly what I want. And I went through all types of different tent companies, and I even considered doing just the tarp, but I kept coming back to this tent, and it's everything I'm looking for. It's a 2-person, but for somebody my size, it's probably closer to a person and a half.
Yeah. How much did your whole rig, I know, use not including your hiking poles, but like your stakes and your mesh and everything, how much was your whole thing weighing?
It was about 2 pounds, I believe.
Okay, so that's
with everything. So I would say, as far as like ultralight, it's not exactly ultralight, but it's probably the lightest, not ultralight tent that's out there. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do we have, I got to read this other one from Facebook, Larry. It's from William Ripari. Goonies never say die.
Yeah, that's my brother. So there's actually a story about the whole Goonies thing. That's the movie that inspired my sense of adventure. When I was a kid, I watched that movie so much that my mom had to buy me another VHS of it because I wore the first one out. But I always loved the idea of finding your tribe, your group of friends, and you're just out there doing these things. You never give up on each other, or you never give up on the adventure. And my brother had given me a coin that had a pirate ship, and it said Goonies never say die. And I brought that with me, and I would take photos of it at certain points. And I'd send it to him so that, I had a little bit of, like I said, my family's just incredible. They were with me every step of the way on this. When I announced that I was going to do it, they were like, that sounds crazy, but we're here for it. But yeah, that was the thing about the Goonies never say die. It was cool. The day before I left, he handed me the coin. I kept it in my hip belt pocket in my pack so that I could always take it out and snap a photo of it.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. Do we have any other questions for Larry? Any other questions or comments? Or you're getting a lot of thank you for sharing. It was a great presentation. I don't know if you're going to be able to go back and see some of those, but you're getting a lot of comments for a great presentation. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Great. Happy to hear it. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Great presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Larry, for spending your time here with us. We really appreciate it.
It was a great opportunity. Thank you so much for letting me share it.
Yeah. All right. So, does anyone have anything to say concerning the Solar Club before we sign off here, or any other last minute questions for Larry?
Just want to thank you again, Larry. What an awesome presentation that was.
Thank you.
Very informative, awesome pictures, great stories. Everything was great. I just wish that Bill had been here to see it.
Thank you. And George, was it you I was communicating with an email about all this?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for helping me get this all set up, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was really well put together. Thank you.
Hopefully we'll hear back from you after your next trip.
Yeah,
I'll come back again.
Great idea, Carol.
Definitely want to hear from you about your next ones.
Absolutely.
I'll be back.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Sounds good. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting then, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And don't forget our picnic next month. And we will see you on the trail somewhere.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
Bye.